What's up everyone, it's Kelly and today I've got another swatching review for you. So today we are talking about the Zoya Spring 2023 collection, which is called Daydreaming. Before we get into that, if you haven't heard of Zoya before, they are a mainstream nail polish brand that is 10 free, meaning they are free of 10 of the potentially harmful ingredients that can be found in nail polish. They are vegan, meaning they do not use any animal-derived ingredients, and they're also cruelty-free, meaning they do not test their products on animals. So the Daydreaming collection consists of 6 polishes, and they're all very shimmery polishes and even a couple of metallic foily nail polishes, which I find to be a very interesting color story for spring. When I first looked at these colors, I thought that it looked more like a winter collection because of those really jeweled tones. But if you watch my channel, you probably know I'm not a huge fan of typical spring collections, so I was pretty intrigued by it. So let me just show you the swatches, then we can talk a little bit more about it. But I do want to make a quick note for my Zoya reviews. I do use the Z-wide brush. That is not the default brush that comes with Zoya polishes. They do default to a round flat brush, and there is an upcharge for getting separately the Z-wide brush. So if you prefer a round skinny brush, no worries, that is a default. If you like a wide flat brush, you either do have to buy it separately, or sometimes Zoya on their website will do different deals where if you get a full collection, you can get the brushes for free. But yeah, let me show you the swatches, then we talk a little bit more about my thoughts on them, pricing, availability, all that good stuff. So roll the swatch footage. So as with all of my swatch and review videos, I am using base coat underneath all of my swatches just to protect my natural nail and prevent any stains. Today I'm using the Orly Bonder base coat. So we'll start off with the shade Kira, which is a really intense cobalt blue shimmer, and looking at it in the bottle, it looks like it's almost this jeweled tone, but as soon as I started applying it on my nails, I realized that it's definitely more of a sheer shimmer. So I was really intrigued by that. I do love a sheer shimmer, and I thought it actually ended up looking pretty good in 2 coats. I will say on camera, a lot of these in 2 coats don't really have the oomph that they have in real life, so just something to keep in mind. But I did end up doing a 3rd coat of all of them just to show you, and I do think that in 3 coats it has that full opacity and it looks very similar to how it looks in the bottle. But I love the shimmer in here. It's almost like these flecks of shimmer, and they're very faceted, so they catch the light differently and they look really pretty. And I feel like there's hints of color in those shimmers, so they look a little bit like purpley blue silver kind of bits in there, and I thought that was really gorgeous. Because it was on the sheer side, I was curious to see how it looked over black, and I think that's how you can really see the depth of all of that shimmer in there and the different colors of shimmer that are in there. So I absolutely love when I can use a polish 2 ways, one on its own and the second way being over a deeper color. So definitely enjoyed being able to play around with this one. Next up we have the shade Marie, and this one is a cool toned purple shimmer. Again, it had that sheer type of finish to it, and this one actually ended up being a little bit more sheer than Kira, so I was curious to see how it would look in 2 coats, and to be honest, I feel like this one was just a little bit too sheer to work in 2 coats. It ended up being just a touch patchy, where you could see some areas of the nail had a little bit more coverage than others, so I ended up doing it my 3rd coat, and I think that that ended up looking really nice. It still had that full coverage color that it looked like in the bottle, but it still had a little bit of sheerness. You can almost see this very soft line of my visible nail line there, and I thought this was actually a really pretty color. I absolutely love a cool toned purple, and I thought this one ended up being really good. And again, it has that sort of fleck type of shimmer in there that shows a couple of different colors, so I was also curious to see this one over black, and I would say out of the ones I tried over black, this was probably my least favorite, just because that purple base was almost a little bit milkier, so it ended up clouding up that black base a little bit too much, but it's still interesting to kind of experiment around with them. Moving on, we have the shade Terra, and this is more of an orchid color shimmer, so it's kind of sitting in between being a pink and being a purple. It has that really nice cool tone to it, and again, we have that gorgeous shimmer in there that just shows so many different colors. It's definitely harder to pick up on camera all of the little nuance in the color of the shimmer, but you definitely see a little bit of pink, a little bit of even almost gold, and then that silvery shimmer as well. And I loved the way that this one looked in 2 coats. It definitely gives me the best of both worlds because we have this gorgeous jeweled tone, but then we have it in a sheer formula. So it ends up giving a more springy vibe while not being those springy pastel typical colors. And then in the 3rd coat, it did give me full coverage and it looked absolutely stunning. So can't get enough of this one. I think it's really pretty. So again, I wanted to try it over black just to see how it looked. And I always think that these types of shades are really cool because over black, you can see so much better all of the different colors of the shimmer in there. And again, this one sort of had a little bit of a milky base. So it did soften up that black base a little bit, but this one was a lot less patchy. So it was able to give me a nice full coverage look. It almost looks pretty cosmic on the nails. Next up, we have the shade Tink. And when I tell you, I was not expecting to care about this polish at all because it's really just a basic hot pink shimmer, but oh my gosh, this ended up being my favorite by far out of all of the colors. I just loved that shimmer. I loved that this one had a more jelly-like feel instead of that sort of sheer milky feel. There's just something about it that feels so squishy and shiny, and all of that color coming through in that shimmery fleck just felt so good. That being said, this to me does not feel like a spring color at all. It doesn't even feel like a summer color to me. To be honest, this feels like more of a fall-winter type of shade, but that is not going to stop me from wearing it because I think it's absolutely stunning. And I know most people don't wear their polishes seasonally anyway, but this one also ended up being my favorite over black just because we had that sort of jelly-like base instead of that milky base. It really showed the color through so well without softening that black up at all. So it just looked so beautiful on. It reminded me of Space, but like pink version. Next up, we have the shade Sipsey, and this one is a really intense coppery orange metallic color. And this one was interesting because I thought it was going to be more of a foil shade, but it did start out being a little bit sheer, and I was able to get it full coverage in 2 coats. Now, the really gorgeous thing about this shade is that it has these little golden flecks running throughout. There's definitely a little bit of a brushstrokey vibe when you're applying it, but once it dried, I didn't see any of that brushstroke at all. So I was really impressed with this one. It did give me full coverage in 2 coats, but it did feel a tiny bit thin. So with this shade, I would probably wear a thicker top coat. Otherwise, it's probably going to feel like I don't have enough polish on my nails, if you know what I mean. Kind of a weird sensation, but I don't know. It's something that bothers me usually. And last but not least, we have the shade Yardley, which is another metallic foil type of polish. And this one was a little bit more opaque. This one is also what I would consider a copper shimmer. So maybe Sipsey is less of a copper and more of an orange metallic, but this one is another super gorgeous one. And again, it has those golden flecks running throughout. It reminded me a little bit of some of the shades from Essie's holiday collection from 2022. But again, I really loved it. It didn't scream spring to me, but it's a really gorgeous shade and it feels like a special occasion type of polish. So this one was a little bit more brushstrokey though, so I was careful with my second coat. You can see kind of the lines down my nails, but personally, I love that look. I think it elongates the nail really nicely. So yeah, here are all of the polishes together, and overall, I am really surprised to see this come out as a spring collection because this to me definitely feels like more of a fall winter color scheme. Although I will say with those more sheer formulas, I can see it working for spring. Maybe those top 3 colors feel a little bit more springy, but the bottom 3 colors definitely scream fall, winter, and even more holiday, winter holiday kind of vibes. So I thought it was a really interesting take by them. I do love to see brands step outside of the box because I get so bored of seeing the same color stories over and over again for each season. So definitely appreciate that. But yeah, overall, I'm a little confused, but mostly intrigued. So yeah, those are the polishes, and overall, I am really impressed with them. I think it's interesting how they managed to make these shades that I would normally consider to be a little bit more wintry into a more spring palette. And I'm not sure if it was intentional, but to me, it seems like they made these polishes a little bit more of that sheer shimmer kind of style. And I think having them in 2 coats makes them feel a lot more springy. And then you can also put on a 3rd coat for fuller fuller coverage, and then you can almost wear them for multiple seasons because you have a spring version in 2 coats or a winter version in 3 coats. I also, of course, like wearing these types of polishes over black, and I think they look really beautiful that way as well. But overall, I'm just impressed that Zoya kind of took a chance here and did shades that weren't the dusty pinks and blues and purples that they normally do for this time of year, because I would say their spring collections tend to be my least favorite. And I also appreciate that it is a full specialty finish collection. There's no creams here, which I feel like they've been really overloading us with the creams lately. So yeah, overall I am actually really impressed with these shades. So all of these polishes come in 15 milliliter bottles, and like I said, they do default to the round skinny brush. Now personally, I have a harder time painting my nails when I'm using a round skinny brush. That's why I prefer the Z-wide brush. Although, to be honest, I'm not a fan of the fact that you do have to pay an extra fee if you are a person like me who has an easier time painting with a wide flat brush. So that is something that I hope that they can work out and potentially just make it choose your brush at checkout and it costs the same either way. But until then, we do have to deal with that upcharge or when they have those special deals going on. Now, the price does vary based on where you get your Zoya polishes. On the Zoya website itself, they retail for $12 USD, which is the most expensive that I've found. They are available from a few retailers. I know Beyond Polish sells Zoya and those retail for $7.70. HP Beauty Bar also sells them and there they retail for $9.50. And with both of those retailers, I do have a discount code, so I'm going to link all of that down in the description. But yeah, I'm curious to hear everybody's thoughts. What do you think of these polishes? What do you think of this different color story? And what do you think of the idea of them being a little bit more sheer, potentially building up to fuller coverage? I'm very curious to know, so leave it in the comments. If you enjoy my swatch and review videos, please give this one a thumbs up. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. I put out new videos every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. And of course, a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon, my royal astronomer Amanda M, as well as my cosmic admirals Rocket Man's daughter, Paula, Ken, Rosie, and Courtney. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye. Today's fun fact question comes from Patreon supporter Pookie Bear, and Pookie Bear wants to know, what's your favorite thing to do on a day-to-day basis? Honestly, I feel like the majority of my time is spent filming, editing, painting my nails, answering comments kind of stuff. So I feel like I treat this as both a job and a hobby where I just spend the majority of my time doing it. But outside of that, I am a big fan of reading. I don't know that I actually mentioned this, but last month Ryan gifted me a Kindle, which is something that I've been wanting for so many years, but I just couldn't justify buying it because libraries are free. But lately, especially here more and more, I was like having a hard time getting the books that I wanted to read at the library. Since we moved here, I feel like every book that I put on hold at the library, it takes an average of like 2 months for it to be ready for me to read. So he did gift me a Kindle, which I'm so incredibly grateful for, and I have just been devouring books. It did come with a free trial to Kindle Unlimited, which is mostly self-published books, but there's also a few more popular books up there. So I've been trying to read as many of those as possible before, well, actually, I don't know. Maybe I might keep the Kindle Unlimited subscription, so I don't know quite yet, but I am just really pleased to have it. Another thing that I struggle with, I read books a lot on the library app on my phone, but at night I try not to look at my phone because I have a hard time falling asleep. So I feel like the Kindle has been really incredible for that because it feels like I'm reading an actual book. It's not like I'm staring at like a blue light. So yeah, that's been my hobby. Basically, when I'm not doing YouTube content or painting my nails, I am reading. So I'd say that's probably the number 2 thing I do after this. But yeah, that's it. I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!